New book, Transmania, is causing a sensation in France, with the deputy mayor of Paris even calling for its adverts to be taken down. One of the authors, Dora Mutat, will be joining us. And, of course, myself and my fantastic panel will be answering the questions from our wonderful and very hot studio audience. My studio guests this evening are drinking buddies Cressida Wetton and Bruce Devlin. Hello, guys. So you are dressed, obviously, for this for an air conditioner that's broken down here. Very clever, very nice white trainers on there.
Thank you.
You, not so much.
Well, thinner fabric than you've got. Fewer layers.
I am schwitzing, as we say. But has Andrew ever asked either of you to go on holiday with him?
Yes, and I declined.
Yes. You may. What about you, Cressida?
Well, no, we pop up to Leeds for a gig now and then, but it's not really a holiday.
No. Did you? Why did you decline?
I'm not keen on him.
OK, well, these are the valid reasons, I guess. I have been on holiday with him, and it was a nightmare. Let me just say, if he brings out the Trivial Pursuit, say no. He knows literally everything, and it's terrifying. And if you just want to feel very stupid for the holiday, that's good. But you guys had a good week?
Yeah, we've been up to Leeds together.
Okay.
For Comedy Unleashed, I'm still recovering. He's fine, obviously.
Very good. Well,
Yeah, it's been our year anniversary.
It has been our year.
Yes.
There you are, yeah.
I met Cressida a year ago in Leeds, and we stayed in Wakefield on Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still washing that off.
They have... they've been drunk ever since. Right, let's get this show on the road with some questions from our wonderful, dedicated audience. Our first question's from Helen.
Hello.
Hello.
Following the local elections, is a Labour landslide now inevitable?
Yes, so with the general election incoming, the Conservatives took an absolute drubbing in the local elections this week, and now have fewer councillors than the Lib Dems for the first time since 1996, just before Tony Blair's Labour landslide. Things went from bad to worse for them on Saturday, as Sadiq Khan easily won a third term as London Mayor, and Tory incumbent Andy Street lost in the West Midlands mayoral race to Labour's Richard Parker. So, what do you think? Is it... Okay, hand it back. We want to hear what Helen has to say about this. What do you think? Is it over for the Tories?
Handing on the mic a bit too quickly, then. Yeah, I think it's inevitable, yes. I do think it is likely that we will have a Labour government. I think that's what everybody thinks.
Yes.
I don't think there's any two ways about it. I think it's inevitable.
Is it even worse having an election?
I think we've got a left-leaning Conservative government at the moment anyway. It's going to be even more left. So
that's what Labour usually means. But we'll see. What do you think, Bruce?
I think the SNP will get in. I think that'll be a nice change for everyone. That'll be fun.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting 6 months of this, but it does seem like it is somewhat of a foregone conclusion.
Going on for years already. Well, there's one person who thinks that the Conservatives have still got a chance, and unfortunately that's Rishi. He's still saying, we're going to do everything we can, and he's keeping a positive face on it, but he must be so stressed privately.
Yeah, I mean, the Home Secretary, James Cleverly, said that this is just the local elections, and he thinks that by the time the general election, they're going to sort of swing back.
Well, look, I mean, it's all possible, isn't it? I don't think it is. No, absolutely not. They're on their way out. They've had 14 years. Everyone's bored. It's time for a change. I can't imagine what could happen. What would Starmer have to do now for them to not actually...
It's like you'd have to say that, like, you know, women have a penis, crazy things like that. Is there anything... What would your advice be to Rishi Sunak?
Oh, to pipe down.
Really?
Yeah, no, I think he should, actually. Again, and I've said it before on the show, is buy trousers that fit. You know, get the breaks down to your ankles. Because he does go around as though his budgie's dead in, like, kind of lovely ladies'
He wears them like that because he thinks it makes him look tall.
But it doesn't. He just looks like a fool.
It's it. So, OK, so any sartorial decisions? Do you think that's what's going to break it for the Tories, or any actual policy? The trousers or any other policies that you might want to put in?
Well, I mean, obviously, they recently, the French started attacking the small boats with knives. You know, I think maybe we got some shots of Rishi actually doing that himself, wading out and doing that personally. But he's not going to do that.
He'd probably use a spoon.
He probably would. Yeah.
He'll keep the trousers short for that, then, so they don't get wet in the water. So that kind of negates my advice. So, but, you know, he might do that. I don't know. Do you think the Labour will get in?
I think it's pretty much a foregone conclusion, yes.
It just needs to happen, doesn't it?
That's the thing, is now that we've still got, like, this kind of 6 months of it... It's
proroguing, if you will.
Well, we've had Starmer this week, haven't we, calling for the election now, and calling it a zombie a zombie government at the moment. Not that, I mean, why would Rishi listen to Keir? There's no reason for him to do that.
Well, if he's a zombie, he won't listen.
Well, no.
But you just saw Suella Braverman there in the news. I mean, she was...
bless
She's
her.
livid.
She was hardcore.
She's livid. You know, you may not agree with her on everything, but she's very much an authentic version of herself.
She did say what she wanted to say.
Oh, she meant business.
It was pretty
public.
hardcore. Yeah, all right. Well, look, our next question is from Penny. Hello, Penny.
Hello. Do we think, has common sense won the day at the NHS?
Yes, has common sense won the day at the NHS? Yes, so someone seems to have woken up and realised people are more interested in the NHS making sick people better than calling them by the correct pronoun. Health Secretary Victoria Atkins is making changes to the NHS constitution, which will see phrases like chest feeding and people with ovaries outlawed. Even Keir Starmer is getting on board.
To get the clarity, is it right or is it wrong for Rosie Duffield to say only women have a cervix?
Well, look, biologically, she, of course, is right, about
so
that.
So do you owe her an apology?
Well,
yes. Do you owe her an apology? This has been somewhat ongoing. But actually, Cressida, the NHS constitution, my understanding is it has to be changed or ratified by the Health Secretary every 10 years.
Yeah.
So it feels like this is coming more from the government and not actually coming from the NHS at all.
Oh, you mean because it's just time? It's just like, it's time to have a look at the lease sort of thing. The 10 years are up.
But it's just that also a lot of NHS leaders are kind of saying, oh, no, we should not do this or there's going to be complications. It feels like it's not coming. It feels like the NHS is still institutionally captured and this is the government going, finally, no, enough is enough. Sex matters.
Right, yeah. So, OK, so I said there was nothing Rishi could do. I mean, this helps, doesn't it? It's time. It's time. That was fun watching that. I'd like that to have gone on a bit longer. I think the bit I was really going to enjoy was when he did or didn't give his apology. That's what I'd like to
Well, also, I think they should have just brought Rosie Duffield in. We've got Rosie here!
Oh, fantastic. Yes, like a sort of 90s Cilla Black's.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Matthew, tonight, I'm Rosie Duff.
Yes.
I'm dry ice.
Surprise. What's the question? Has common sense prevailed?
Well,
yes,
I mean, but you say it's got... That's my fear of it. What kind of changes do you know, Bruce, that this might actually make to the Constitution in terms of women's healthcare?
I genuinely have no idea, and I'm not going to pretend that I do, right, because I really don't.
Well, let me tell you.
But on the same episode, Richard Madeley was discussing shoplifting.
OK, that's very good. That's the...
So if you give that a Google, you'll understand what I'm talking about, allegedly. So,
OK, well,
yeah.
I'll head back to Cressida for this question, then. Because a lot of the problems
primarily, you'll be a woman in hospital and you won't think, are any men going to come into the space? I mean, that's the number one thing, isn't it? We've heard endlessly about women's spaces.
Yes, because at the moment there's been a misunderstanding, and part of that's been through Stonewall and other organisations presenting the law as being, you know, having sex being gender. Yeah. And that's been the complication. So it seems like by saying no, sex means biological sex, that will seemingly solve a lot of these issues, like language, in terms of chest feeding, and make it actually relevant to biological women again, but also so that women with intimate care, is that correct, that they will now be able to request a doctor or a healthcare professional who is of the same biological sex, right?
Yes, and not be called bigoted or refused service in some cases.
Yeah, and there was a woman as well, I believe, who was raped actually on the ward, and the NHS said, oh, it's impossible, this is a women's only ward, but it turns out it was a trans woman.
One of those things that could never happen that seems to happen now and then.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully this will lead to more common sense leading to our other institutions. We're going to see. Next question is from Roger.
Hello.
Hey.
Should Al Jazeera be shut down in Israel?
Yes, should Al Jazeera be shut down in Israel? The Israel cabinet has voted to close down Qatari television network Al Jazeera's operations in Israel. The vote, which happened earlier today, followed Israel's parliament passing a law which allows the temporary closure in Israel of foreign broadcasters considered to be a threat to national security during the months-long war in Gaza. So this is, of course, Free Speech Nation. Cressida, am I a hypocrite by agreeing with that decision?
Well, as you explained to me earlier, Josh, no, you're not a hypocrite.
Yes, as I was shouting at you earlier.
No, I mean, they're not... It's not an Israeli channel, so there's that. Obviously, channels being shut down is a topic that's very close to my heart. But it's special circumstances, isn't it? Having said that, I don't completely understand why it's such a threat to Netanyahu, because isn't it... You sort of know that if Al Jazeera are broadcasting in Israel, everyone will presumably who's consuming that media knows what their agenda is.
Yeah, yes, it's true, but then it's not just that it's broadcasting in Israel, it's that they have offices in Israel and are able to use Israeli networks to spread what Israel would argue is propaganda in a state of war. Like, in World War II, there were, what was it, Axis Sally, or there was Tokyo Rose. There were...
Tokyo Drift.
There was... Yes.
Vin Diesel. But now, Access Sally.
Access Sally. These were...
That sounds like a programme I would like to present.
I must have read this in a book somewhere. These were propagandists working for the Axis who were putting out anti-Allied propaganda, but they were doing it on Axis soil in Japan and in Germany. But the difference is, of course, if they had been operating out of the UK, we would have... I'm sure the government would have shut them down and people wouldn't have said, oh, no, free speech, that people's rights.
Actually, it's kind of a surprise it's taken this long. I mean, it's been months, you know. Don't you think?
No,
They've just been carrying on regardless since October the 7th.
Well, considering that information has come out that journalists working for Al Jazeera participated on October 7th.
Right.
But I think well, Bruce, for me, this would be one thing, whether you know a lot about this issue or not, but journalists, the idea is that they're meant to present information, good or bad, regardless of agenda. That's the idea.
Impartiality.
We don't always live up to it. But, I don't know why I said we, I'm a stupid comic. But the point is that the Al Jazeera journalists working from the Gaza and working out of Israel are never actually presenting any information that might put Hamas in a bad light. So they're failing at their job, surely. It's not that Hamas are perfect. They're a terrorist organisation.
But that's the thing. I don't understand why people are so frightened to call out Hamas for what they are and what their aims are and how they operate, if you see what I mean.
Well, absolutely. But I think the thing is here that Al Jazeera gets free rein somewhat to operate in Gaza by Hamas, but only if they say what Hamas wants them to say. In this case, like a few weeks ago, there was a thing that supposedly IDF soldiers raped a pregnant woman in a hospital in front of her family, and then it turns out that it was just total lies, nothing there, no truth whatsoever.
So it's substandard journalism, it's propaganda, it's not doing the job it should be doing anyway.
Yeah, well, we've got Netanyahu's tweet. I asked him to send this personally. Al Jazeera correspondents have harmed the security of Israel and incited against IDF soldiers. The time has come to eject Hamas's mouthpiece from our country. And, of course, Al Jazeera are funded by Qatar, and that's where the Hamas leadership are presently residing. So it's, yes, makes sense to me. Fine. Our final question for the moment is from Izzy. Hello, Izzy.
Hello, good evening. According to Elon Musk, J.K. Rowling doesn't really know her place. Should she be tweeting about more positive matters on X?
Indeed, yes. Should J.K. Rowling start tweeting about more positive matters? So, yeah, Elon Musk, the owner of X, of course, thinks J.K. Rowling needs to be a little more upbeat in her account. So, responding to a tweet from Rowling about what, in her view, makes a woman, Musk commented, "While hardly I agree with your points regarding sex gender, may I suggest also posting interesting and positive content on the same, or other matters, I should say." Sorry. Wow, I mean, look at your face.
You don't drink wine and then tweet at night. You know, I don't know. I mean, I don't really care. She's a big girl. I think she can handle it. You know, everyone's turning...
She's not a girl, she's a woman!
Oh, God. Everyone's turning it into this, like, oh, my God, he's been so condescending. It's like, it's J.K. Rowling. She's fine. You know, I don't think it needs to be a massive deal. On the other hand, Elon, what are you thinking? This is, like, it's so David Brent-esque. It was just naff.
Well, he is a bit naff, I think, ultimately, but... Also, there is hypocrisy here because he's never tweeted anything similar to anyone, should we dare say it, a male who writes about...
Don't you include me in that? How rude.
What do you think about that? Do you think he was very rude saying that?
What I don't understand about him and taking over, he wanted it to be more free speech, and now he's getting involved with what people should or should not tweet. And it's like, why don't you admit you've had a hair transplant? That would be my thing.
There's nothing wrong with hair transplants.
There's something... His is from David Guest.
Really, you think so?
Yeah, I think it's come through a psychic.
The other thing is, I mean, I'm not going to comment on that. I'm sweating even more. But Chris, I think you follow J.K. Rowling, I assume, on X. The thing is, she doesn't actually just tweet about the gender ideology and whatnot. She actually tweets about a certain character called Harry Potter.
Well,
that
somebody said she should have a day off and write some kids' storybooks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess, but also, I mean, you can't get away from the fact that all of this gender-critical stuff that she's done, that has driven a huge amount of traffic to X and kept people there who might not have stayed otherwise. So I have no idea why he tweeted that. It's beyond me.
It's a straight... Well, also, the blame surely goes with him that he's the one who creates these algorithms, and that's what sends that stuff out to people, including himself. If he put... You know, he should create algorithms that gets the kind of... the more boring stuff. What I'm trying to say is I've written a lot of tweets about board games that have gone nowhere.
So what you're basically saying is he's dementing himself on his own app by being a Dementor, which was a character from one of JK's books with bad hair.
That's exactly what I was saying, yes. OK, then, thank you. So, time for some ads, but coming up next on Free Speech Nation, Jerry Seinfeld says political correctness is killing comedy. I'm going to ask comedy director and producer Gary Signor if he's right. See you in 2.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes. Thank you for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
I have to say, the jam issue is
It's all very WI, isn't it?
Well, it's ridiculous. Now there's a picture of a friend of hers who's lying on the grass, cuddling a bowl in which the jam is placed in the middle with lemons round it, and a dog lying next to her. So she's holding this as if it's someone else that she really loves. I think, well, Meghan would have organised that because she'd have given her the present. I think this is too far. I mean, it's jam.
It's stupid as well.
Yes.
I mean, you know, if any of us were to bring out a product, you know, Isabella might associate with jam. I could see how that would
Sticky
work.
jam.
Yeah, but Meghan Markle, why?
Well, what was her website called? Twiggy or Tiggy?
No,
or
I've got it down because I can't remember. America. Oh, Tig, the Tig.
Tig. She used to be quite, a lifestyle guru pre-Harry. So she's trying to go back to look at what I'm wearing, look at what I'm eating. I can get everybody to buy my product.
And what the chickens should have in my garden.
Do you actually think jam crosses her lips? Would you?
Of course, way too much sugar
but
in
they
there.
also say it comes from her garden. I mean, how many strawberries has she got? Does it mean 50 people, that's only enough for them? It's not going to have thousands of people asking for jam. We won't have it. And there is a thing that she was cross that, she said, jealousy, really, that King Charles brings in all the food and the jam, things to make from somewhere else. He doesn't do it himself or get his staff to do it. But he gives it all the money to charity, right?
Yes.
All this money is for Meghan. And it's sold out. And people have thought, well, actually, if we are going to get jam, if that's what's trendy, let's get it from the king, not from Meghan.
Not her.
Yes.
Yeah.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Isabel Webster. Thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. American comedian Jerry Seinfeld has once again expressed his belief that political correctness is stifling the creation of truly funny comedy. Seinfeld, who starred in the hugely successful eponymous sitcom for many years, says there is a shortage of funny news shows because of what he describes as PC crap and people worrying so much about offending other people. Let's take a look.
Just expected there'll be some funny stuff we can watch on TV tonight. Well, guess what? Where is it? This is the result of the extreme left and PC crap and people worrying so much about offending other people. When you write a script and it goes into 4 or 5 different hands, committees, groups, here's our thought about this joke, well, that's the end of your comedy.
I've got to be honest, I prefer his earlier stuff. Well, my first guest clearly knows a huge amount about good comedy because he cast me in one of his shows. It's the award-winning director, producer and writer, Gary Signor.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hello. So, firstly, Gary, what do you make of Seinfeld's comments there?
So, it's rubbish because it's not the left PC-ness that's destroying comedy. It's always been stupid people in positions of power who try to restrict comedy. So that happened with Fawlty Towers, it happened with Monty Python, it happened at ITV. It has historically happened that we've had people in charge of our comedy in Britain who have not been very good at making comedy. And that's like reflected now in the mainly not very good shows that we get to see. I mean, I think your audience is probably of an age where, I mean, on BBC Two, the most watched shows at the moment are Dad's Army, repeats of Dad's Army, Last of the Summer Wine. These things are still getting shown, and that's what the kind of thing we tried to make with Hapless, quick plug, and which is kind of rising damp thing. But because it's got a Jewish character in it, in the lead role, I think the people like the BBC and ITV and Channel 4 were all like, ooh, you know, we can't have a Jewish character in a sitcom. And it's like, no, the whole sitcom's about all sorts of other stuff, like going on a driving awareness course and taking it up with the guy for being an idiot because he knows that a bus could kill someone a lot easier than his car. So it's like, you know, it's just because the Jewish character, it's put down. So I don't think he's right that it's specific to now. I just think it's more exaggerated now because we've got more idiots running the system.
So there's a few points I want to get slightly deeper with you on there. First of all, though, I'd like to see your impression again of them being scared.
Of who being scared?
Of the producers being scared. It was,
Sorry, can I do it in Arabic? It's not la bouk ibn al-kalb. There you are. Do you know any Arabic? Do you know any Arabic? Anyway,
we're going to get
can I put this up, by the way? Am I allowed to show that?
Let's get to the Jew stuff later.
Sorry. Just say it's not a big thing.
Free the hostages.
I was meant to have a silver thing, and
I've got one.
Anyway.
Okay, free the hostages. Yeah, we don't talk about that kind of stuff here. No, first time. So, yeah. I just want to pull up. The first thing I would say is that, yes, he specifically talks about the process there and how the interference, but you could argue, in terms of backing up his point, their fear now, whereas before their fear was just like they just didn't know what they were doing, now it's almost like having this kind of woke agenda is what drives them and drives that fear. So their fear now is given some kind of direction or aim according to this agenda, right?
I just think it's not the case. I mean, we have to hope that if people are writing good comedy, and this Hapless has been released in the States, been compared to Curb and Seinfeld. I'd rather it was compared to Rising Damp in the UK, but, you know...
well, let's have a quick look at let's have a clip. Supposedly the second lead is amazing.
He's brilliant.
Is he see you there? What, you didn't see the black man in the queue, no? Because these goggles restrict my vision. You got racist goggles, yeah? Yeah, do you have any pictures?
I do not collect pictures of babies' boys' penises. Man, not trouser. You're gonna touch us both at the same time, and we'll see who feels it first.
Now!
Hurry up, little man.
Oh, that's not funny, mate.
Quickly, the window. Tiny penis! I asked for a trim, he looks like a kiwi fruit. I can't shut the door.
Try!
I am trying.
There we go. Let's have a round of applause. There we go.
Thank you. So, I mean, I take your point that that people are more scared now, and that we have people in control who have grown up in a sort of more liberal, progressive kind of society. But it still doesn't solve the fact that it is consistently a kind of stupidity that stops risky, edgy, but great sitcoms from being made, which is why you still get great stand-up, like you get Ricky Gervais and people like that doing great stand-up. It's in the process of making through committee that I think people lose their way.
And do you think it's that? No, I'm just saying. Do you think it's you calling all of the people the decision makers in television, idiots that might stop your TV shows from being?
I don't think. You know what? I don't see any connection at all. Do you think there might be a connection?
I don't know. It could just be. But talking about
that might explain something. I don't know. That might explain something. I'll tell you what. So, for example, at the like in Fawlty Towers, there was an episode that was cut because the character used the N-word. Now, the thing is, I wouldn't now have a conversation. I wouldn't use the N-word. But I could have a conversation in comic terms about why I'm not allowed to use the N-word when Chris Rock is allowed to use the N-word. So you'd go, well, Chris Rock's allowed to use the N-word. So I go, well, could I use the P-word? And you'd go, well, hang on one second.
Gary,
could I use the Y-word? And then you'd go, no, you're not allowed to use the word yid. And then we'd go, you use the word yid.
Please don't say the N-word.
OK, all right. I won't say the N-word, but you know what I'm saying? It's like, you have to laugh
about anything. I get
you have to laugh at the current situation.
Okay, well then let's say that he's right in the sense of certainly that where are the great new comedies, the comedies that have really crossed over? Obviously, Hapless being the exception there. Yeah. But what great sitcom? He mentioned things like MASH and some of the sitcoms you've talked about, and Fawlty Towers, The Office. Where are these Friends? That I'm not saying that nothing funny has been made there. I think Dairy Girls was very funny. I think there's a show Extraordinary. Anybody's seen on Disney, it's very funny sitcom. But they're not crossing over in the same way. Now, is it because these risks aren't being taken? And let's just say, forgetting the gatekeepers for a second, do you think the programme makers, the actual writers and directors, are not taking those risks themselves?
No, I think they probably are taking the risks, but they're being led in a particular direction. I mean, sorry to come back to Hapless, but the thing is, we made Hapless and we offered it to the BBC, and it got 5-star reviews from the Mail and the Sun and the Express and the Times or whatever, and the BBC news site never promoted it once, OK? Now, we're talking about a series that was absolutely populist, that you guys would love, that was compared to Rising Damp, and the BBC news site and the ITV news site and the Channel 4 news site never spoke about it. So you're also talking about a system that is designed to promote the shows that it wants to promote, and so that's what they will do. And I'm afraid to say it's the same in America. So there's a whole quagmire. It's not the writers. I think the writers will write funny if you give them the opportunity, and we know that like the stand-up comedy guys will be funny. I don't think it's that. There's a system now where, sadly, and it's massive in Britain. You guys are being deprived of good comedy. And that pains me, and I can guarantee you, because I've spoken to particular people, it pains the people at the highest levels of British television. They just don't know what to do about it.
Well, maybe they could be a bit braver.
They will need to be a bit braver.
And that's how it's going to change. What about, can you talk to us what happened with British Airways? Are you able to talk about that? Still a few months ago now.
Yeah, British Airways, so British Airways bought Hapless, and then they rang me up on October the 11th or 12th and said that they wanted to not show it for the time being because they didn't want to take sides in the war. And this is essentially a British comedy with a Jewish character in it that ridicules in all directions, satirises Muslims, Jews, Christians, atheists. It has a scene where Josh, as you saw, is having his penis inspected to compare it with a non-Jewish penis to see which is more or less sensitive.
That's how I won the audition, by the way.
It's just comedy, and the idea that someone would go, this is Jewish comedy and it needs to not be shown out of sensitivity was ridiculous. And luckily, the papers, the Telegraph and the Sun, I think it was, picked it up. Again, not BBC News. Again, actually, I don't think GB News. Anyway, yes, actually, you did. You're right. But again, they refused to. They sort of refused to make a story out of it. So, yeah. Anyway, British Airways relented. I think the chief exec got like 500,000 emails to his personal email address from a lot of Jewish people who were quite offensive.
Someone actually recently sent me a photo. They went on holiday and they're like, this is what I'm watching.
They were watching on British Airways?
Yeah, and they blame me for
Yeah, but I'll tell you what, I bet you they won't buy Series 2 now.
Do you think? Well, you have. Again,
yeah, because
you burnt that bridge.
I burnt that bridge as well.
Yeah.
What's left?
I don't know. It's going to be me and you every week talking here, I think. I just want to go back again. One point you're saying is about the writers' room. I think the writers' room has changed. We will talk about that in a second. But the writers' rooms have changed. Obviously, there's a different process. You wrote the series yourself. Here, you wouldn't allow anybody, including me, to change a word. But in America, it's different. They have writers' rooms. It is written somewhat by committee already. Now, if the people in those writers' rooms are changing because of an agenda. And that's what I'm hearing from friends of mine who are now working as writers in America, is that some of them are losing jobs, that there is this idea that it's more important about showing a diverse writers' room than having a funny writers' room. And that they are blaming for the decline in the standard of comedy.
I have no answer to that. I'm sure it's true. If you hear it, it sounds true. I'm part of some very long-winded WhatsApp group that's got people in it who are writers who are talking about being sidelined. And I know that in Britain you have to bring in diversity to get something away. I think the light at the end of the tunnel is perhaps that there are people at very high levels who understand that there is a problem and wants to address it. And we need to, instead of just slagging them off, we need to engage with those people, which is personally what I'm trying to do. Even if it's not about Hapless, I'm trying to engage with those people, say, you need to make more British comedy so that your audience and the children of your audience get the chance to have a laugh in this country. And that's what I think we should be doing.
I hope so. And in the meantime, well, first of all, yeah, put up your Free the Hostages again. Absolutely. Go with that 100%. But where can we see Hapless?
Hapless is on Prime in the UK, series 1 and 2, 14 episodes. Okay. And then it's on Peacock in America, if any of you live in America, which would be very odd indeed if you came here.
Thank you very much, Gary, for coming in.
Thank
you. Don't switch over to the watch it before this show's finished. Right. Still to come up on Free Speech Nation, Jenny Watson is going to tell us about an alternative to the Pride March, which is being organised for this year. But next, I'm going to be rejoined by my panel to take some more questions from this wonderful studio audience. Thank you very much, Gary.
Hello, welcome to your GB News weather update brought to you by the Met Office. It's going to be staying rather cloudy this evening, but for Bank Holiday Monday, it's a case of sunny spells and showers, but hopefully a little bit more settled as we go into next week. But we have got low pressure firmly in charge, especially across the southern parts of England. This has brought quite a lot of cloud and rain. That cloud and rain is going to continue to push its way northwards, affecting southern parts of Wales, but generally fizzling out across Northern Ireland and Scotland, holding on to a lot of cloud here. Still some outbreaks of showers, heaviest in the north and east, but a lot of cloud around, so temperatures aren't really dipping tonight, but we could see some mist and fog patches develop where we see the clearest skies. As we go through Bank Holiday Monday, then, we've got a few watch points, especially across the southeast England. As we start the day, we've got outbreaks of rain that could turn quite heavy at times. Elsewhere, sunny spells, but also some showers breaking out. Again, some of these could be on the heavy side, turning dry across Northern Ireland, but rather cloudy. Temperatures around average, but in the sunshine, feeling warm with highs of 17 or 18. As we go through Tuesday, a drier theme. Many places starting off with some sunny spells, but also quite a lot of low cloud, especially across the northeast coast of England. And then through the day, some showers are going to be bubbling up, but high pressure is going to be dominating into next week. That will keep things a bit more settled, with temperatures also on the rise.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. OK, let's get some questions in from the audience. Our first question is from David.
Hi there. Do we really need to know Les Dennis's pronouns?
Yeah, do we need to know Les Dennis's pronouns? It turns out that well-known showbiz figure Les Dennis is male, in case anyone was still wondering. So here is the stunning and brave announcement was made in a casting poster for an upcoming production of Shakespeare's Twelfth Night, which helpfully listed the preferred pronouns for all the cast members. No pronouns for Shakespeare himself, though. His gender identity remains a mystery. Wow. Do they think, Bruce, that this is going to sell more tickets?
I've no idea. I mean, do we need to know that Les Dennis is still with us? Would be my biggest question.
So you think it should be alive in brackets?
You know, still here.
Still here.
Yeah, I mean, the last I heard of him, he was in Coronation Street, so, you know, this is all news to me. I personally, I've nothing against pronouns. I don't use them myself. I remember the first time I was asked, and I said they are F and off, and that caused quite a stir at Pinewood Studios. And, yeah, I don't get it. I'm all for making people feel comfortable, all evidence to the contrary. But, yeah, I mean, Les Dennis, really? Brush your hair.
Well, this is less about criticism, Cresta, of Les Dennis, who I'm sure will make a wonderful...
oh, yeah, who's he playing?
He's playing...
he, him.
He's playing...
Well, not necessarily.
Manolo, or sorry,
I don't
he's
know.
playing the 11th night.
Malvolio.
Yes. Yeah. Hey, there we go.
I know.
Yeah.
I read something.
Andrew's here in spirit.
Don't lump me in with him.
Okay. But, I mean, what do you make of this? What is this? I mean, it feels like so 2022.
It's very annoying, and I feel very sorry for Les Dennis that he's come in at the wrong time. Because if he'd done this, you know, a year ago, it would have been fine, wouldn't it? And he's just come in as it's all crashing down, and Graham was right, and everyone's, you know, we've had enough now, and it's, bad choice.
I don't think it was his fault. I think it was just someone made that decision.
Yeah, exactly. I wonder whether he even... Well, he probably did, because they wouldn't assume, would they? That's the whole point. I suppose he knew, but it must be difficult when you're surrounded by theatrical lovies to say no to these things.
Well, I just think that if they wanted a bit more publicity, they should have been Les Dennis, she, her, and that would have sold out. That would have been fantastic. Right, our next question is from Rob. Hey, mate.
Hello, Josh. Is Danny Minogue correct that straight women can identify as queer?
Wow. Is Danny Minogue right? Yes, straight women can identify as queer. Singer and presenter Danny Minogue has launched the UK's first ever lesbian dating show, I Kissed a Girl, which will see 10 single women. Well, they're just basically going to...
do what lesbians do.
I've seen,
enjoy themselves.
I've seen that video. Anyway, but Minogue is seemingly heterosexual and has been married before, but now says she identifies as queer in a weird way. I guess being queer just when you want to promote a TV show is quite weird, isn't it, Cressida?
Well, I mean, I identify as a size 6 in a weird way. I mean, it's just, what is it? There's never been any evidence to the contrary. I don't get it. I don't know why she is saying this.
Well, Bruce, friends of mine who are homosexual, some of them, think that queer is a very derogatory term. They grew up with that word, it's a slur.
So I was surprised at the use of the word. By the way, I think this is all nonsense and the whole article was conflated, and it is to promote a show. And, of course, she's going to identify as queer. Have you seen who her sister is? I mean, really, the writing's on the wall. But, no, for a lot of people, I don't have a problem with that word. I know that some people do, and that's up to the individual. So I was surprised that she used that word.
Yes, it is weird, and but for me it winds me up as a straight person because it feels like it diminishes what it means to be gay. when anybody's queer or gay, then nobody's queer, and it's ridiculous.
Then my thinking is identifying as being queer doesn't necessarily mean that you're homosexual.
No, well, that doesn't. But that's I think that's what the problem is, and you have a lot of straight people now saying they're queer to sort of somehow that they want to be special, but it takes away from gay people and their language.
What,
anyway.
like the they-thems in Waitrose?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I know what... Basically, yeah. Right, next on Free Speech Nation, Jenny Watson will be here to tell us all about the alternative to the Pride March she's setting up for this summer. Don't go anywhere.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
King Charles is well known for his views on climate change, and apparently he's now taking steps to make sure that his Sandringham estate is more eco-friendly. Well, it's being reported that the King is planning to have 2,000 solar panels installed on that estate, and it's set to make the estate largely self-sufficient with a supply of its own green electricity. Well, joining me now is former Royal correspondent, the absolute legend, that is Michael Cole. Michael, twice in 2 days, I feel blessed. Look, King Charles has long been talking up his eco-credentials. Some may uncharitably compare him to Greta Thunberg in a tweed suit. It's one thing, however, to be self-sufficient in energy, but got to be said, solar panel farms, they're hardly eco-friendly, are they? They destroy environments. What's your take?
I certainly agree with that. The King has indeed, as you say, Martin, and good afternoon to you, applied for planning permission. Now, this is going to be a bit of a mini solar farm, 2,000 solar panels on a site of 2 hectares. And as he has the Sandringham estate, 20,000 acres, 4 acres isn't going to be very much, and it's nowhere near where he lives at Sandringham House. Now, these things, which we're seeing on the screen, are hugely controversial up here. A monster one is being planned on the borders between Suffolk and Cambridge, and the people there really despise it. As they say quite rightly, is this grade A agricultural land being turned over to this semi-industrial use and spoiling the look of the countryside and changing it in a negative way.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
And this report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
Free Speech Nation. Women's rights campaigners are organising an alternative march in London this summer for lesbians because they feel alienated by the official Pride events. The campaigners feel that recent Pride celebrations have become hypersexualised and dominated by the trans movement. The plan is for the alternative event to take place on the same day as the Pride celebrations, 29th of June, and could potentially start at the statue of suffragist leader Millicent Fawcett in London. Jenny Watson is behind these plans, and she has been kind enough to join me now. Good evening, Jenny.
Good evening. Thanks for having me on the show. Thank you.
Pleasure. So please tell us about this new event and why you think it's necessary.
So the plan is on the day of Pride, we're going to do our own march. We're going to go to Parliament Square, meet at the suffragette statue. We're going to do a few laps of Parliament Square. And then after, the plan is to go for a picnic in the park. We want to make it a family fun day. We don't want to make it this hyper-sexualized event. And, you know, I've been going to Pride events since I was 18. I'm 32 now. And I've seen how it's got worse and worse and worse. And women, and in particular lesbians, are just not comfortable with that. And so I thought to myself, I'm not just going to stew away. I'm going to do something about this.
Fair enough. So will there be any restrictions on participation? Is it just going to be for lesbians? Is it going to also be for supporters of lesbians? Is it going to be apolitical?
So basically, we are welcoming lesbians, bisexual women, our female friends and allies. But, you know, at the same time, you can't stop bad actors. Like that's going to happen if you're running a public event. That's just how it goes. But like, what I would ask is, please leave us alone. We just want to run this event. We're not attacking anyone. You know, it's supposed to be a family-friendly day. We're going to go to the park after. It's, you know, it's suitable for the whole family. And yeah, I really hope they don't try to take that away from us. Mm-hmm. You know, but if they do, all it goes to show is that we need these spaces.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, do you think that there will be the need, you know, for it to be policed? Because, yes, there's a real idea. Trans activists, you know, might take this as some kind of, believe it or not, attack on them somehow. That there's this kind of statement here.
Yeah, they will. They will. But it's not an attack. It's just that we want our own events, and they run their own events as well. So why can't we have our own? But it's not an attack in any way. We just want an event that represents us. You know, that's literally it. But yeah.
I see. So what further needs to be done to make this into a reality? How can people help you?
So because of, I mean, we don't know exactly what's going to happen, but I do suspect that we're going to get counter protests. So we've had to enlist marshals, stewards, first aid, things like that. We're printing flyers that we can distribute them to get our message out there. But, you know, until now, we've footed the bill for that. But it's going to be, well, hopefully it's going to be a big event. So we have set up a GoFundMe page. Well, first of all, you know, the most important thing is that people spread the word, right? Because a lot of lesbians don't realize that there's an alternative. And I was in that position about 6 years ago. So I went to London Pride in 2018. And I don't know if you heard about Get the L Out. They kind of hijacked the parade, and they went to the front of the parade. And until that moment, I had no idea there was an alternative. I just went with the prevailing narrative. And so that's our goal, is we want to get the message out far and wide so that women in our position know that there's an alternative. So that's, you know, that's the biggest thing. Please spread the message. But, you know, we've got hundreds of signups now, which just shows the real demand for it. We've got stewards on boards, but a lot of this, you know, it's costing us quite a bit of money. It is, and you know, we're happy to pay so much for it, but it's just it's a big event. So we've decided to set up a GoFundMe page. So if anyone wants to donate, it'll go towards stewards, high-vis jackets, walkie-talkies. You know, it's the end of June, so you know, we're going to get.
Fair enough. Just very quickly, slightly related, but you wrote an article last week about the need for men's spaces, very much in the news with the Garrick Club vote this week. Do you think this is the end result of recognition that, you know, by women being different, that men are also different?
I mean, completely. I mean, that's always been my stance. You know, every single cell in a human's body dictates that they are male or female. and that's my stance.
Well, fair enough. Well, look, good luck to you. Maybe it'll inspire a gay men and bi men march, and maybe then also a straight march, and then also be with the Palestinian march. It's going to be an interesting Sunday. We'll see what happens. Well, thank you very much for joining us. Sorry.
Can I just say one really quick thing? So there's a gay men's alternative event taking place on the same day, and the GoFundMe page. So if there's a surplus, then we're going to donate that to Byra's place. And that was set up by J.K. Rowling, and it's for victims of sexual abuse. So, yeah, if you want to donate, any surplus will be...
Well, we've got to go now, Jenny. Thank you so much for joining us. Good luck with the event. Right, there's plenty more to come on Free Speech Nation. We'll see you then. Bye.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, welcome to your GB News weather update brought to you by the Met Office. It's going to be staying rather cloudy this evening, but for Bank Holiday Monday, it's a case of sunny spells and showers, but hopefully a little bit more settled as we go into next week. But we have got low pressure firmly in charge, especially across the southern parts of England. This has brought quite a lot of cloud and rain. That cloud and rain is going to continue to push its way south and push its way northwards, affecting southern parts of Wales, but generally fizzling out across Northern Ireland and Scotland, holding on to a lot of cloud here. Still some outbreaks of showers, heaviest in the north and east, but a lot of cloud around, so temperatures aren't really dipping tonight, but we could see some mist and fog patches develop where we see the clearest skies. As we go through Bank Holiday Monday, then we've got a few watch points, especially across the southeast England. As we start the day, we've got outbreaks of rain that could turn quite heavy at times. Elsewhere, sunny spells, but also some showers breaking out. Again, some of these could be on the heavy side, turning dry across Northern Ireland, but rather cloudy. Temperatures around average, but in the sunshine, feeling warm with highs of 17 or 18. As we go through Tuesday, a drier theme. Many places starting off with some sunny spells, but also quite a lot of low cloud, especially across the northeast coast of England. And then through the day, some showers are going to be bubbling up, but high pressure is going to be dominating into next week. That will keep things a bit more settled, with temperatures also on the rise.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the biggest cash prize we've given away to date. An incredible £20,000 that you could use however you like. And because it's totally tax-free, every single penny will be in your bank account to do whatever you like with. £20,000 in tax-free cash really could be yours this summer. But you've got to be in it to win it. For another chance to win £20,000 in tax-free cash, text PRIZE to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB05, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 31st of May. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Dubes & Co. Weekdays from 6 p.m.
Organisations, plural, because there's loads of people doing this. The organisations are charging schools to be part of this odd league table about who's trying to outdo who when it comes to who is more trans inclusive with the kids than the next person. There's something makes me uneasy about this.
Supposing a child comes home and says, you think, oh, I've done well today. He said, well, how have you done? He said, well, I was #1 painter, or I was #1 reader. No, I wasn't. I was made LGBT champion. This is a 4- and 5-year-old. Look, I can understand this, actually, as we develop into the secondary school. I can understand more debates taking place. I cannot understand why we have to thrust it at young children. And I think if you ask the parents, they'd be hostile to it. And what about the role the teacher has to play in all this?
Society has been one way, the pendulum is swinging the other way, and they're pushing it very far in order to kind of proliferates change. And this is probably the toughest period in that evolutionary process, because the LGBTQ plus community is saying that you've got to really rage against the machine to get people to listen. Because put it like this now, even this conversation, the whole country is listening, the whole world is listening. These are the kinds of eyeballs and ears they haven't had before. And there's going to be friction. There's going to be a locking of heads in the process to getting to a point where you establish a new equilibrium where they feel more incorporated. Like I've said, the greatest force of allies that the LGBTQ plus community has always had is heterosexual women. What you're moving towards now is doing things that is beginning to turn them from allies into people who feel that, oh, for you to thrive, I'm being deprived, and that's a problem. When they realize you're alienating allies, they will understand you've got to recalibrate to have that kind of understanding between both parties.
There's plenty more still to come on Free Speech Nation this week. We will ask the editor of Spiked, Tom Slater, about the student protesters who needed to be provided with food and water. And myself, Krista and Bruce will tackle some more questions from our wonderful audience. But let's get a news update first from Sam Francis.
Good evening from the newsroom. It's just gone 8 o'clock. The top story tonight, Rishi Sunak is under pressure after a disappointing set of local election results. Government Minister Mark Harper, though, insists the Conservatives are focusing on the priority of the British people. But opposition parties are now calling for a general election. MPs on the right of the Conservatives are urging the Prime Minister, though, to be more radical, including former Home Secretary Suella Braverman.
There's no time to change leader, so the Prime Minister is going to be leading us into the next general election, whether we like it or not. What he needs to do to salvage this dire situation is to accept the enormity of the problem, these terrible results, and quickly and urgently change course. So make sure that there are meaningful tax cuts that people can feel and benefit from. Put a cap on legal migration. Take us out of the European Convention on Human Rights so that we actually stop the boats, and make sure that we reclaim our streets back from the extremists.
Sir Keir Starmer says he is determined to win the trust of voters back who turned away from the Labour Party over its stance on Gaza. They lost some council seats to independents and to George Galloway's Workers' Party of Britain. Pat McFadden is the Vice Chair of Labour Friends of Israel, and he told us this morning that the party will support Palestinians in government.
But two things have guided our position all along. One is the one that you just mentioned, which is Israel's right to defend itself after the appalling attacks on October the 7th. That will remain. We will stick up for that. But we also want to see a better future for the Palestinian people. And if we were to be elected at the coming election, that would be a big foreign policy priority for us.
Pat McFadden speaking to GB News earlier today. Well, in other news, 4 men have been arrested after £40 million worth of cocaine was found in East Yorkshire. Around 500 kilos of the drug was discovered in the back of a van in a pub car park. Officers believe the haul had been brought ashore in a boat transporting it from a larger vessel off the Hull coast. Senior investigators say it's a major blow to the organised crime group which was attempting to smuggle the drugs into the UK. A 10-year-old girl has died in a house fire in Bradford in the early hours of this morning. Emergency services were called to reports of a blaze in Kingsdale Drive just after 1 o'clock this morning. A woman and 3 children did manage to escape the property. They have now been taken to hospital for treatment, though it's not thought to be life-threatening. Sadly, a 4th child was found inside the house and died at the scene. Investigators are now working to establish what caused the fire. In Northern Ireland, a man has been left with potentially life-changing injuries after police found him nailed to a fence. Officers have described the attack in the residential area of Bushmills as sinister and brutal. The officers that attended the incident also said that 2 vans had been set on fire near where the man was found. Police are now appealing for anyone with information or who may have dashcam footage to urgently call 101. Another small boat crossed into UK waters this morning with at least 50 people on board. It brings the total number of crossings so far this year to now more than 8,500. That's 35% higher than the same period last year. Ministers have blamed the increase in numbers on a surge, they say, in migrants from Vietnam. Southern Water has said that supplies are now gradually being restored to more than 32,000 properties in East Sussex. Homes in St Leonards-on-Sea and in Hastings have been without water since a pipe burst there 3 days ago. The damage has now been repaired, but the company says services still need to be restarted. And we've heard today that actor Bernard Hill, who's best known for his roles in Titanic and in the Lord of the Rings trilogies, has died today at the age of 79. It comes just hours before the release of his latest project, Season 2 of the drama The Responder with Martin Freeman. Well, fans of the cinema icon have been sharing tributes on social media and also honouring their favourite performances of his career. For the latest stories, sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts. Now, though, it's back to Free Speech Nation.
Free Speech Nation. Let's get some more questions from this lovely studio audience. Our next question is from Pat.
Yes, do you think that Drew Barrymore was disrespectful to cackling Kamala Harris? And am I being disrespectful by referring to her cackle?
And am I going to be respectful by talking about you being respectful about the cackle? It's very
How dare you?
Now, I know. So, yes, this is Drew Barrymore, the actor and talk show host Drew Barrymore. She's been criticised this week for a cringeworthy interview where she carried out with the Vice President Kamala Harris. Let's take a look.
Been thinking that we really all need a tremendous hug in the world right now. But in our country, we need you to be Mamala of the country.
Oh, my God. That was disgusting. Pat, what do you think? I mean, that's cringe, right?
It's the way all the mainstream media treats any Democrat, no matter how poor, no matter how poor the performance of the Democrats, they're always sucked up to by the media. That was just a particularly egregious example of that.
So I'm taking you're a Republican.
I'm to the right of the Republicans.
Okay. I don't even want to think about that. So, Cresta, Mamala, this is a New York Times columnist. He alluded that it's racist because there's this kind of historical blindness to the idea of mammy, which is in films.
Goodness.
And what do you take of that?
He's projecting what he's seeing, isn't he? I wasn't thinking that, and I don't think the majority of people. I mean, I'm with you. It's disgusting. I want to be sick, but that's fine. It's not for me, you know.
It's for Americans. Who cares?
Whatever. But it's
Pat.
not. No, I don't feel like I've witnessed some racism and I need to call it out. Absolutely not. And I think the only bit of racism in the conversation is the guy calling it out. He's projecting it.
Yeah, I mean, it would be strange if that happened here. I can't imagine people calling Thatcher Marla.
No, but did anyone actually watch the whole thing? Kamala comes out and says that she's a step-parent, Drew's a step-parent, and to Kamala's stepchildren, she's Mamala. So that's all Drew has said.
OK.
So it has been slightly... Don't get me wrong, it made me want to hurl. In the same way that when Nicola Sturgeon used to call herself Chief Mammy, I thought that was just bizarre. But this is what it's about. So what's to do with racism? Someone saying, oh, by the way, I'm Mamala to my stepchild. Well, that's your business.
Yeah.
But also, as well, what's happened to Drew Barrymore? It was like she was about to wet herself or cry. That was so overzealous.
It's called the menopause. So...
Oh! How dare you, and in this heat?
I know, I sympathise. But it does raise slightly wider questions, and that's a really good point about the mullet, like it's a private conversation and widening that. But, Cresta... Is the idea that having female leaders, that there is meant to be a different paradigm to male? Is there any such thing as...
Probably. I mean, we love this, don't we? The feminisation of society, and everyone wants all the women to be CEOs and so on and so on, which...
But would they be CEOs or leaders in a different way, is what I'm arguing?
Well, I don't think... Individual women, Margaret Thatcher's a good example, can be unusually masculine. So not necessarily is the answer. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think the women that tend to end up in positions of leadership are probably there because they're not typically feminine. They probably have some masculine, disciplined kind of traits on average.
What do you think, Dadala?
Oh my gosh. I've just had 5 days in Devon with 5 kids trapped in a cottage. Never called me daddy. Again, our next question is...
I called you Dadala and piped down. Wow.
That makes me even more sweat. All right, our next question is from Matthew. No, Matthew, hey, mate.
Thank you so much. Is the BBC woke, or is Mark Lawrenson just a rubbish pundit?
Ooh, harsh. Yeah, is the BBC woke, or is Mark Lawrenson a rubbish pundit? Former footballer Mark Lawrenson has hit out at the BBC, where he used to work as a pundit on Match of the Day and Football Focus. Lawrenson worked at the BBC for 30 years after his playing career ended, but he says he was ditched a couple of years ago because he's 65 and white, and the BBC is the top of the woke league. So, do you think that? Do you know him? Are you a fan of his at all? Are you a fan of football?
I am actually, yes.
Yeah?
I can tell you, being a lifelong Everton supporter, I can confirm that he's a rubbish pundit, yes.
This is a Liverpool-Everton joke there. Very good. Even I know that much. But do you think that he was fired for... Because some people would say it's more ageism as opposed to wokeism. He's 65.
I think it's a bit of both. So when I watched the interview, he seemed very genuine in his responses, and he is obviously getting on in age. And he stated that he was being let go for being, I guess, a white elderly male. And I think he has a point. I believe that's true, yes.
Yeah, I mean, Bruce, 30 years.
Well, they got rid of Ken Bruce. I know he's not a football person, but he's another elderly, white, gentle lady.
But, I mean, in this case, 30 years working in media, that's a pretty good innings.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, no one owes you anything, and if you're not under contract and you're not up to snuff, pipe down, you have to go.
But here's I guess what he's saying, Cressida, is that he was up to snuff. He was still delivering the goods. He was still knowledgeable about the sport.
If we didn't have DEI, then we'd know, wouldn't we? But once you get DEI going, nobody knows who got the job on merit and who didn't. And they'll always tell you, at the company level, they'll shout about their prejudices and they'll say, we want to hire more diverse women and blah, blah, blah. And then at the individual level, they'll tell you, oh, this person got there on merit. Now, both of those things can't be true at the same time. And if we didn't have DEI, we wouldn't be asking this question. We'd know he was just rubbish.
Should we replay this on VAR? Just to find out what exactly happened, because of course a narcissist is going to say they're good at the job.
Yeah, well, it's...
That amused me, sorry.
I mean, look, I don't watch football, I don't know who his replacements are, but I did watch a very good podcast this week by Andrew Gold, who's been on this show, called Heretics, where he interviews a new football pundit talking about exactly this, DI. They really get into it, they argue, it is interesting. But I guess it comes down to how do you prove whether someone is better or worse for the job? And in this case, with football, I have no idea because...
Well, no, neither do I, but the BBC have been pretty loud about this in the past, haven't they? And many organisations, well, I just said it, they're very happy to tell you that they hire this way. So it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, I mean, he also talks, it's a slightly separate thing, but he talks about how woke they are, but his idea about is how frightened the BBC is. And he just keeps on going about how frightened they are. Did you get any gist of what they were frightened of?
I think EastEnders, it needs to stop. It's gone on too long. I don't think anyone's interested. They're frightened about backlash that they're not being diverse in their recruitment.
Yeah.
And doctors. That needs to stop. No, it does, honestly. No.
All right, then. No. Our next question, then, is from Andy.
Good evening. Should our loyal friends in Ireland join the Rwanda migrant scheme?
Should Ireland join the UK's Rwanda migrant scheme? Yes. So it would be hard to argue that the government's Rwanda migrant scheme has been a runaway success. It's got off the runaway. And Ireland's Prime Minister, Simon Harris, has dismissed that claims he's been offered the chance to join it. The UK and Irish governments have been at odds recently as Ireland struggles to deal with the number of asylum seekers who have arrived in recent years. Yeah, Cresta, this is interesting because 80% of migrants into Ireland are coming through the open border, through Northern Ireland. So, like, we are their France.
We are their France. So should they join? Yeah, I mean, then Yes, I suppose they should, shouldn't they? Although I'm not really... Rishi seems to think that just the threat of the Rwanda scheme is enough to make all these migrants run to Ireland. I find that very unconvincing because we haven't seen it happen yet. On the other hand, we have seen articles this week about migrants in the UK beginning to be rounded up by the UK authorities. So, yeah, I can't see why they wouldn't want to join it because...
Well, I think because it's seen as a right-wing policy and it's very unpopular, and of course the Irish governments are arguably quite progressive.
But then have they not come to bite themselves in the bum by virtue of the fact saying that the UK is now unsafe because people are going to be sent to Rwanda, so that's why they're going to Ireland now, and they can't hand them back here?
Yeah.
So, yeah, my point is, where are the people on the borders?
Yeah, you're absolutely right in that they're passing legislation now to make the UK a safe place. This is how they do it. So it's like everyone can sort of point from afar, but when the issues of migration overtake national politics, suddenly then everything's off the table or on the table and everybody's kind of running scared, which is...
Yeah, and I bet if you ask the average Irish person, are they going to have a referendum about this? Probably not, but I bet they'd be up for it.
No, but you have seen these protests in Ireland. Again, the narrative seems to be, and I'm sure that there are right-wing influences, I mean, far-right can get involved. And this is the problem. If you leave this debate just untethered, it will then go in that direction. And that's why adults in the room need to have this conversation. Not me, though. Right, our next question is from Luke.
Hi, guys. Do trans women need help obtaining breastfeeding support services?
Yeah, do trans women need the help of breastfeeding support groups? 6 trustees of a nationwide breastfeeding support group have been suspended for asking that biological men should be excluded. Right, the British wing of the Lalesh League, LLL, yeah, which offers support to people finding it hard to breastfeed, have been told that its US board of directors that the sex service cannot be single-sex and must support male lactation. Now, Luke, how's your lactation?
Well, last time I checked, it was pretty dry, but, well, you never know.
This hot studio is not helping my lactation. What do you think about this, though? This is incredible, right? I mean, you have basically the American board and the US and the UK board fighting each other, and then the UK board being suspended.
Well, it's just completely ridiculous. Well, the last I checked, men can't breastfeed physically, and the NHS has got precious little money as it is, so we just need to stop this.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is a private charity, and I believe those people who've been fired are actually recommend or refer themselves to the Charity Commission because they are seen to be breaking the law when it comes to same-sex brews.
Relactation.
Yeah, not really.
Sorry, I'm just trying to take everything in. No pun.
It's very... Look, well, also, the argument, the trans activists would argue that trans women can produce a milk, which is this kind of milky substance, which there's no proof as to whether actually... it's not right. It's very experimental if they take certain hormones, but there's no proof that it actually provides any nourishment to the children.
No. Yeah, Weren't we always taught to buy organic?
You think that, yes, this is the problem here. Cresta.
No, but I just mean if you're talking about the milky substance and that, because I think we've discussed this on Headliners or something before, if that's all infused with kind of hormone...
chemicals, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you still get rusks.
I think you're thinking about the babies in all of this. There's nothing to do with that. It's about the fact that America's behind us on all this stuff. And Kemi Badenoch's going to get hold of this, and they won't get away with it if they're getting away with it currently. It's not going to last long.
Yeah, I mean, this is, as a charity, it's a very good charity in that there's been proven scientific benefits for breastfeeding your children. And a lot of women can find it very difficult, and they need that help, and we actually needed that help. And it made a big difference in terms of, I believe, our children's health, but also the bonding of the mother and the child. So when these organisations are kind of taken over by identity politics or whatever, they're losing focus on what they're there to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course they are. And I imagine that trans women do have a lot of problems with breastfeeding, but I don't think this is the charity for them.
No, fine, fair enough. Get your own charity. Our next question's from Heather. Hey, Heather.
Thanks, folks. So, yeah, diversity is obviously the buzzword of the moment. Do we need more diversity in our train drivers?
Yeah, do we need more diversity among train drivers? The National Skills Academy for Rail figures show that only 1 in 10 drivers are non-white and that even fewer are women. The industry body says the average driver is 46, male and white, a statistic seized on by the BBC, which considers such people to be on a par with puppy-torturing sadists. Please, Salah, now, how did you get here this evening, Heather? By train?
Yes, funnily enough. I didn't ask if it was a diverse train driver. I just got on the train and it worked, which was great, you know.
That's rare.
Yeah.
Very rare.
It worked, you know, yeah. I mean, from my point of view, diversity is... We pay lip service to it. It doesn't actually mean what it means. You know, it started with good intentions, as all these things do. But what happens now is that if you speak to the standard working class person, it means very little to them, you know. And when you look at the careers of train drivers, it's going to be white, working class men, you know, and that's the reality. And we're suddenly discriminating against white, middle-aged working class men.
Yeah, white, working class, multi-millionaires. Thank you. So, well, Cresta, you read the article that was sent out. It was interesting how it presented the information, I thought, because when it started talking about London, and these areas are obviously geographically specific. Now, when it came to London and the Overground and the Tube, actually, it was 2/3 of the train drivers were people of were non-white.
Yeah.
So. It's in when they try and extrapolate to nationally.
In a country that's mostly white, we've got mostly white, mostly male train drivers.
Is the gist of it. And also, the other thing they were saying was that it's about age, and obviously these guys, they're mostly men, they have a pretty cushy job. Sorry, train drivers, but you do, and fair enough, you have your unions, and that's what works for you. But they're not going to be that necessarily eager to retire. So if they're bringing through new people, I understand the statistics for the new people coming through much more closely matches the wider demographics of the country. So
which is what you'd expect.
Yeah.
So dare I say it, this is a non-starry for me. Mr. Schaefer's always with us. I don't really understand what their point is. Why are they banging the drum about this?
I guess because every industry now, Bruce, is expected to have an exact representation according to the country.
Well, I think over and above that, and I'm all for diversity, just recruit more train drivers, because we were on the platform on Saturday. How many? Oh, there's no one there. There's no catering. There's no this. So as opposed to focusing on representation, I don't know if I'm wrong in saying that, why not just get people, whoever they are, to do the job so the trains actually run? That's what I'm saying. It was very rare you got on a train that ran. So well done you.
Yeah, congratulations. Right. Next on Free Speech Nation, Tom Slater from Spiked will be here to discuss those fearless, radical, revolutionary student protesters who also need to be provided with free hot food and water. See you shortly.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Prince Harry, remember him? He appears to have fully turned his back on the UK as he listed his primary residence as the United States for the very first time in papers published yesterday. So interestingly, Harry listed the date on the formal US residency forms as the 29th of June 2023, last year. So that was the very same day he was kicked out of Frogmore Cottage in Great Windsor Park by his dad, the King. Charlotte, thank you for joining me. Okay. Are we just putting 2 and 2 together here with the significance of this date? Because there were stories during the rounds today that Harry chose that date specifically because he was so hurt about being booted out of Frogmore by his dad.
Yeah, I mean, to me it feels like he's trolling his dad a bit, because he could have said that he's been a US resident since 2020 when he quit the UK and moved to the States, but instead he chose the exact day that his dad kicked him out of Frogmore. But the reason his dad kicked him out of Frogmore was because he'd slagged off Camilla in Spare. And, you know, and his dad, apparently it was a really difficult decision for Charles, because, of course, no dad wants to kick their son out of their home. But he went beyond the pale. So Charles took the difficult decision to say, look, Frogmore's been empty for years anyway. We've spent £2.4 million doing it up for you. And now you've, insulted our family in your book's best. Why is he so hung up on Frogmore? Because this is the country he was desperate to get away from. This is a house he didn't particularly want to live in and, in fact, didn't live in.
Well, he was forced, by the way, to pay £2.5 million to fund the renovations after it all kicked off. I mean, would that have anything to do with...
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that sort of galvanised his anger towards the whole situation. He thought he was getting a fantastic freebie. And there was, there were a few reports at the time that Meghan actually thought she was moving into Frogmore House, which is a much grander property. And she sort of felt a bit sort of tricked or confused and hadn't quite realised it was actually a cottage, which is only a mere, I think it was only a mere 8 bedrooms.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. A big talking point at the moment is the wave of pro-Palestine protests, which have been taking place on university campuses in the UK and the US, where they have often led to violent clashes with the authorities. Several commentators have doubted the sincerity of the protesters, myself included, and were given fuel for their argument this week when one of the brave radicals at New York's Columbia University seemed most concerned about the lack of access to free hot food and drink. Let's have a look.
I guess it's ultimately a question of what kind of community and obligation Columbia feels it has to its students. Do you want students to die of dehydration and starvation or get severely ill, even if they disagree with you? If the answer is no, then you should allow basic, I mean, it's crazy to say because we're on an Ivy League campus, but this is like basic humanitarian aid we're asking for. Like, could people please have a glass of water?
No, you can't. To discuss this, I'm joined by Tom Slater, the editor of Spiked. Hello. Good evening, Tom. Now, what is the story behind these protests and the demand for the free food and water?
Yeah, so this was actually about a day before that these particular set of protests got broken up. But this was the occupation at Hamilton Hall at Columbia University in New York City. And the context for this is that they had just broken into the building, smashed windows, barricaded the doors. This had gone beyond being a peaceful protest, full-on kind of civil disobedience. But a few days in, they suddenly decided that actually they weren't getting access to their prepaid meal plans, which existed on campus. They're also upset about the supply of water. So this hilarious impromptu press conference takes place with one Johanna King-Slutsky, is her name. This story couldn't get any more ridiculous. But I think it does speak, as I'm sure we'll get into, to the sort of layer of babyish upper middle class entitlement which seems to run through these protests as much as anything else.
Yeah, I think I saw a clip just now from someone was trying to hold a man hostage. One of the workers for the university was being held hostage by some multi-billionaire's son, and it just shows the cosplay here that's going on. And some of my favourite clips online at the moment are those clips of where you're going up to the protesters and saying, "What are you protesting?" And they don't seem to know.
No, absolutely. It seems like this has been... Obviously, there's going to be some people there who are really committed to this particular cause. I think in a lot of cases they're posing as humanitarians when really there's a lot of pro-Hamas sentiment, a lot of anti-Semitism and all sorts. But there's also a tremendous conformism to all of this. This has just become, as they say on the internet, the current thing amongst a lot of university students. That's not to dismiss the worst extremities of this and to make excuses for it. I think there's been an alarmingly high tolerance for extreme opinions, for outright expressions of anti-Semitism, and also a lot of tolerance for things that clearly go beyond freedom of speech into harassing Jewish students on campus and smashing things up. But I think it's a reminder that these protests have been presented as almost like these kids are the successors to the 60s radicals or something like that. There's a complete universe of difference between them, not least because of the fact that their cause is so unjust. I think it's ridiculous to compare them to a kind of previous generation. But also because of the fact that when people used to rebel on university campuses, they would expect a response. They would expect that if you're breaking the rules, that comes with certain consequences. These kids, because they've been indulged for so long, kind of assume that they can smash windows and be provided with refreshments, effectively, while doing so. So that's a very big difference, I think.
I mean, maybe in that way that these protests actually serve a function to kind of a course correction to that generation, to go, there are consequences to your actions.
Well, potentially, but it doesn't seem like it's really breaking through. There's been this very bad faith discussion that's taken place, which is to say, oh, this is a free speech issue. Where are all the free speech warriors? And I found that whole element to this discussion really ridiculous. First of all, because particularly in America, and I know that we at Spiked have done it, where there have been instances where peaceful protests, no matter how disgusting I find them, have been broken up, targeted. We saw that in Texas recently. We've seen that at other university campuses. Just for the content of what they're saying, we've come out and condemned that. The thing is that free speech doesn't give you the right to commit violence. It doesn't give you the right to occupy buildings. And if you are to engage in civil disobedience, you should expect some sort of consequence. But it's just been striking how people who a month ago would have been trying to get a professor fired for using the wrong pronouns are now free speech warriors in the extreme. So I think, it's a hypocrisy upon hypocrisy with these.
Well, this is it. It's the hypocrisy of that, and then, of course, the hypocrisy of these kind of, microaggressions that they would have instantly attacked, but then they're willing to shout for, genocide of Jews in Israel and from the river to the sea, Intifada, and try and pretend that these aren't codes for violence towards Jews. And that also, obviously, I find disturbing. The one thing that you comment on is just for me, it brings to mind these kind of those clips of in China, the sort of Chinese cultural revolution. I mean, the way they act together, there is a sort of fascism and a blindness to their actions, and the conformity, I guess, is what I'm saying. And it's amazing to see that take over in the West, in a very privileged way, and maybe the most privileged of people.
And it's a kind of hysteria as well, and also the other dimension to it, which is so dispiriting, as you've rightly pointed to, is the outright expressions of anti-Semitism that we've seen. This is something that gets... Excuses are made for it. People say it's just a couple of bad actors. But just at Columbia, just at university, Jewish students have had "Go back to Poland" shouted at them. There's been people chanting things like "October the 7th is about to be every day for you guys, get ready for it." There was an Arab-Israeli gentleman who was due to speak at the university, punched in the face by people who were putting up the kind of Hamas triangle symbol as they did so. And meanwhile, you've got a lot of other students who are just turning a blind eye to this, a lot of academics who are supporting the protesters and turning a blind eye to this. And that's another big difference between, say, what happened in the 60s. A lot of those occupations and protests were in opposition to racism. These are protests that are luxuriating in racism, tolerating racism. So I think giving them that mantle of they are just the logical consequence of years of progressive protest, I think just gives them far too much credit, definitely.
Yeah, and seeing the people like I was reading today, Bette Midler coming out in support of them, and again making this comparison with that somehow this like the 60s and somehow this is a free speech issue, and not it's somewhat indicative of the world that we live in now. People not actually looking any deeper at this stuff, just taking the very face value of it. Oh, look, it's young people, they're protesting, so this is exactly what it was in the 60s.
Yeah.
And it isn't.
No, it's just vibes they're working off of the back of. They see a bunch of students who are, dressed like radical young people, they're engaged in radical protests, and therefore they think, oh, they must be on the right side of history. They are quite clearly not. And I think it's something that really needs to be confronted. Just because young people rebel against something doesn't mean they're right. I mean, you can reach for the 60s example as one that, in the popular imagination, is thought of generally as a positive thing. But there are plenty of examples, in China, the Red Guards and so on. There's other examples across Europe we could point to in the middle of the 20th century. Exactly.
The students, young people, strangely don't always know best.
Absolutely. And that's something that we've forgotten, though, in the West, isn't it? We have this idea that kind of blessed are the children, they will show us the way. Not always the case. No. Certainly when you're talking about elite, upper middle class kids who seem to have been indoctrinated into some of the most reactionary ideologies of our time at universities.
Yeah, and also a lot of these universities, the protests actually, it's not just these kids. There's a lot of people, bad faith actors coming in board of that who don't belong to the university. And I've seen some of the most incredible clips. I've seen them attacking actual students, Jewish students, but also just students. These people aren't students, and they're stopped blocking them from getting to their classes. There was an incredible clip of an African-American man and his niece trying to walk through, and he had a Free Palestine T-shirt on, but because he wasn't with them in the immediate sense, they're like literally blocking these kind of, as he calls them, sort of white cosplay actors, and it was just, and he was there as a student, and they weren't, and it was an unbelievable thing to see, and the violence. Now, what are the steps, though, that people can take? Because you say the thing in Texas where you saw actually peaceful protests being broken up, but how do you think this is going to end? Is it going to escalate? Is it going to drag on for months, or are they just going to go home because term's over?
Well, it seems to be playing out very different at very different university campuses. Some of them have taken a kind of overly draconian response. I think it would have been better if it never came to the point of universities having to call in police anyway. They should have been able to deal with this internally. I think a big part of the problem is that a lot of these campaigners, whether it's on this cause or others, have been indulged for so long. They were kind of expected that this could carry on indefinitely. There are some places which managed to end it with negotiation, but I think the fundamental here is the fact that, of course, students have free speech rights. At American state universities, those are actually legally protected. At many other private, they are anyway. But at the same time, that has certain limits, and I think that's something which these students don't seem to understand. The thing about civil disobedience is you are saying that I'm so passionate about this cause that I'm willing to risk expulsion, arrest, etc. You do it anyway because you believe it so much. And on the flip side, I think when people look at these protests, they shouldn't just think, oh, there are young people doing civil disobedience, therefore it must be good. You could quite easily be doing civil disobedience for the most horrendous cause imaginable, and that's what we've seen. So I guess my hope is that these things can be resolved without that kind of heavy-handedness. I don't think it had to play out like that. But there is a certain point where if you're stopping other students from going about their lives, if you're hurling constant racist invective and harassment at particular populations on campus, no university would be expected to put up with that indefinitely. Yeah, and shame on Goldsmiths University, but that is a separate time that we will get into. Tom, thank you so much for joining us today. Next on Free Speech Nation, new book Transmania has caused a sensation in France, with the deputy mayor of Paris saying adverts for it should be taken down. One of the authors, Dora Mutot, will join us to discuss all this and how to pronounce her name. See you soon.
Hello, welcome to your GB News weather update brought to you by the Met Office. It's going to be staying rather cloudy this evening, but for Bank Holiday Monday, it's a case of sunny spells and showers, but hopefully a little bit more settled as we go into next week. But we have got low pressure firmly in charge, especially across the southern parts of England. This has brought quite a lot of cloud and rain. That cloud and rain is going to continue to push its way northwards, affecting southern parts of Wales, but generally fizzling out across Northern Ireland and Scotland, holding on to a lot of cloud here. Still some outbreaks of showers, heaviest in the north and east, but a lot of cloud around, so temperatures aren't really dipping tonight, but we could see some mist and fog patches develop where we see the clearest skies. As we go through Bank Holiday Monday, then we've got a few watch points, especially across the southeast England. As we start the day, we've got outbreaks of rain that could turn quite heavy at times. Elsewhere, sunny spells, but also some showers breaking out. Again, some of these could be on the heavy side, turning dry across Northern Ireland, but rather cloudy. Temperatures around average, but in the sunshine, feeling warm with highs of 17 or 18. As we go through Tuesday, a drier theme. Many places starting off with some sunny spells, but also quite a lot of low cloud, especially across the northeast coast of England. And then through the day, some showers are going to be bubbling up, but high pressure is going to be dominating into next week. That will keep things a bit more settled, with temperatures also on the rise.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall? Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. France is abuzz at the moment following the publication of a new book about gender ideology called Transmania. The book looks at the implications of transgender ideology in contemporary society and has led to its authors receiving similar treatment to that given to J.K. Rowling in the UK. There have even been calls for the Deputy Mayor of Paris for the adverts for the book to be removed from the streets. The book is by Dora Mutot and Margaret Stern, and Dora has been kind enough to join us now. Hello.
Hi.
So,
hello.
Where is France overall in relation to the overall way of the acceptance or fight back against gender ideology?
France is very late on this. It's not like in the UK or in the US. We're very late on this because most people don't speak English, so they don't know about the class review, they don't know about study stock. So they're still in this idea that we should actually give puberty blockers to children, and people don't have a really critical mindset against transgender ideology. So we're really late, but the book Transmania is actually putting things in front of people, and also there is a law by Les Républicains, which is right-wing, against children transitioning. So it's actually moving, and it's going to be reviewed by the Senate in the end of May.
That's interesting because in the UK, certainly trans activists present any fight back against the ideology as right-wing, although, of course, in the UK it actually started from left-wing and mostly left-wing lesbians. Is the fight back in France then from the right-wing? And is that how they're criticised?
Yeah, exactly. When you're gender critical, people say that you're from the right wing. This is what's happening to me. I come from the left. I'm a feminist from the left. But actually, no media on the left would let me speak. No publisher on the left would publish my book. So I had to find people on the right who were willing to publish it and would let me talk on TV shows or in the media. So yeah, that's exactly the same problem. But the difference is that we don't have older feminists from the left who are speaking out, not like in the UK with Jolie Bendel, with Kathleen Stock, with J.K. Rowling. In France, they stay silent.
Yeah, so what has been the reaction then to your book? So in a way, your book has been that opening salvo in the fight back, right?
Yes, exactly. So the reactions are really good on the right wing, really bad on the rest of the spectrum. So the book has been, the advertisement for the book have been taking, I don't know what to say in English. It's been removed from the street of Paris. Also, it's super, super hard to find the book, except on Amazon or online. Most places won't sell it. And they're hiding it. They're hiding it behind other books. So people really have to want to find it, but it's first on Amazon and on most sellers online.
Well, there was exactly the same problem here with Kathleen Stock's book and various others. You had to go in, and then very reluctantly, someone with purple hair would lead you to the back into some storeroom and glare at you like you were this evil person for daring to buy the book. Do you think the book will be translated into English? Do you think that there are lessons or things about the book that are unique specifically to France?
Yeah, some parts of the book are related specifically to France, because in France it's free to do a full transition. It's taken. We have a French NHS. We will take it fully in charge. So it means that French taxpayers were actually paying for transitioning, and French people didn't know that. And it's really expensive for a man becoming a woman. It's going to be around 100,000 euros. So French people are really shocked by the idea that it's actually their tax were financing this ideology.
So, because in the UK, the institutions seem to be still, this ideology is still somewhat embedded, which is incredible, even after the Cass report and various legal wins. But the fight back, it definitely feels like more of the general public are aware, and now politicians are stepping up their game because they want votes. Is there anything like that with Macron in France?
No, not yet. I would say, yes, some parts of the right wing are starting to catch up and starting to talk about it. But I would say most of the center and the left are actually totally on the other side, saying that there is no feminism without trans women, and that it's a crime to not give puberty blockers to children. So for now, I would say that we're going in the wrong direction in France, and I think we're going to do exactly the same mistake, and that it will probably only change when some children who are going to grow up are going to attack and do lawsuits. I think they're probably not going to wake up before, unfortunately.
It's a shame, yeah, because here we had Kira Bell suing the NHS, and I think that exactly woke up a lot of people. But it's a shame, of course, that children's lives have to be ruined to get to that point. And even your life, I believe you've been subject to death threats and marches. Yesterday, I saw on your Twitter.
Yeah, yesterday, hundreds of people called for my murder, asking to put me in the Rhine River, at the bottom of the Rhine River. So, yeah, and tomorrow we're doing a conference in a big French university, and I have to have the police with me because it's getting really dangerous.
Well, all I can say is I remember a few years ago what it was like in this country, what the abuse, the death threats, rape threats that women got in your position. And because they stuck at it, they created change, and I believe you will too. So good luck. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Next on Free Speech Nation, Green Party councillors are very different these days, and Jimmy Carr causes a stir on ITV. It's almost time for social sensations. See you there.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
The biggest of occasions for England's smallest county. In Rutland, there isn't a single statue. Now there shall be, of one of the most important people in British history, the late Queen. Lord Lieutenant Sarah Furness represents the monarch in the county.
Her Majesty provided us all with a sense of stability and continuity. As head of state, she gave us national identity.
Raising £140,000 in donations, mostly from individuals, the statue in the town of Oakham is the first of its kind to be unveiled since the death of Queen Elizabeth. Howell Pratley is the sculptor.
I am a big fan of public sculpture, being integral to, a friendly, caring community.
Young and old are lining the streets to catch a glimpse of the 7-foot statue, including 89-year-old Joyce Lucas in the front row.
We met her on several occasions in Oakham, and we've got some lovely photographs and lovely, lovely memories. She is the Queen. She was great. She was brilliant, and we miss her.
The Queen's death broke the nation's heart. Her memorial is filling Rutlands with pride. Her image, taken from early middle age, set in bronze.
It's a real fitting tribute to the late Queen.
I think it captures our late Majesty's humanity, but also she looks so regal.
Absolutely beautiful.
Queen Elizabeth was Britain's longest reigning monarch. Her reign was great, unlikely to be matched by future king or queen. A legacy of unwavering service recorded in a place of permanent remembrance. Will Hollis, GB News in Oakham.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQs Live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQs Live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
OK, it's time for Social Sensations, the part of the show where we look at what has been going viral this week on social media. First up, the Green Party enjoyed a good week in the local elections, and their candidates these days don't seem to be the harmless, ineffectual salad munchers that we've grown to know and love.
Raise the voice of Palestine! Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar!
Oh dear. Well, that was a vote that I threw away there, Cressida.
I mean, what can you say that Nick Dixon hasn't already said on Twitter? It's nothing to do with the green issues, is it, that statement?
Well, I mean, if Hamas starts using biofuel in their rockets, that might help the environment.
Excellent. Yeah. That level of firework use isn't usually approved of by green people, is it?
I mean, this is it. I mean, Bruce, this is... I don't feel like he's that focused on the sort of, recycling...
Well, no, not at all, because he's wearing a pleather jacket, and that really is very dangerous for the environment.
Yeah, true enough. Next up, comedian Jimmy Carr was criticised for being rude and arrogant towards chef Clodagh McKenna this week on This Morning. Let's have a look.
So, you grab your carcass and you pop it into a big saucepan.
What, have you not got a bin? Pop it in the bin.
And then you put in some vegetables like carrots, scallions, celery.
It's done. The chicken's done.
Now, this on its own is so healing and lovely and so good for you.
Wait till she finds out about stock cubes. She's going to feel a fool.
Bruce, this is incredible. They hired a comedian and he was funny.
Was he? OK. I like her. She sometimes swears on the show. It's funny.
Yeah, not swears at him.
That's really funny.
Do you think he was stressing her at all? He was just doing his job, surely.
I think she's a woman that can take care of herself. I'm not necessarily sure she was sober. And I think, leave it. It's all good.
What do you think, Cressida? Do you think?
Well, I've got a very controversial opinion.
Oh, hello.
Somebody in London. I'm not a foodie and I don't care. And I think it's high time somebody ridiculed the cult of cooking because it's not. It doesn't appeal to me.
No, fair enough. But watching that clip,
wow.
Do you think he deserves...
Let's all just stop. Let's start.
I work with Cressida, and she just eats at McDonald's every day. But no, seriously, do you think he deserves any criticism at all? Do you think this is ridiculous?
I mean, what did you think he was going to do? You've hired him to do that, and now he's done it. Be happy.
Ridiculous, right. Now is the part of the show we're going to talk you through your unfiltered dilemmas. Our first dilemma is from Ben. There it is. My son went for his first proper party the other night, and wanting to be a hipster dad, I sent him on his way with 2 cans of lager and a pina colada. To my horror, he came back from the bash and instead of passing out in a drunken stupor, went straight to the weights room. What have I done wrong? Bruce, what has he done wrong?
So, well, first of all, they have a weights room, so how middle class are they? How is life in Hampstead these days? A pina colada and lager. Scum.
For the ladies. For the ladies.
For the ladies. I'm a lady and I would turn that down.
What do you think, Krista? I mean, this is good. Maybe he wanted to work it off. You know, beer is very fattening.
Have I misunderstood? I think the dad wanted him to go off into the night and find far more pina coladas and come back and be sick and act like a young kid.
No, I think he wanted him to use his pina colada.
Well, they're not doing that these days, Josh. They're all they're all living like
we're dying out as a species. It's the death of love.
There's no tea anywhere. It can't be found.
So, any advice for the dad then? Give him heroin? Fair enough. My second dilemma is from Harry. I really want to go to my school reunion, but I'm worried my former best mate has not forgiven me for getting off his girlfriend behind his back, which sadly ended our friendship. Do you reckon he will let bygones be bygones? What do you think?
Is his friend still alive?
I don't know.
Seriously, there seems so many things that we're not told about. So, you know, if the guy's died...
So basically just hope he's dead and that'll do it. Would you forgive anyone for snogging some guy, your ex?
Well, there's no timescales in this, is there? So we don't know whether this happened last week or last decade or even further.
Well, it's a school reunion. I think that there has to be a certain amount of time that passes between the two. Do it, try it, and email us and tell us what happened. Our final dilemma this week is from Carly. An old friend is having a get-together next weekend, and I can't stand her mates and need to get out of it. Please, can you and the panel come up with a nice and credible but vague excuse? What are all these people who've got these social events here?
No.
Invite me to some of them. Come on, give an excuse. Very quick excuse here.
I'm not coming.
OK, what about...
I'm not interested.
Yeah, that's it. All right. Krista, what about... You know, what would you say?
Tell them you're a TV producer and you don't have nights off and you can't make it.
OK, someone is very good.
Waist down and you hate pina coladas.
OK, well, I might tell her that I'm in watching Free Speech Nation.
Brilliant.
And it's the best show on TV and I have to stay in even when Andrew isn't presenting. We'll see. Or I'm washing my hair. It could be one or the other. Well, anyway, good luck for that. Well, thank you so much to our audience for joining us this evening and sweating through the last 2 hours. Thank you at home for joining us for Free Speech Nation. This is the week where the Tories were humbled at the local elections. French writers were threatened with death for saying that being a woman is a biological reality. And we finally found out that Les Dennis has pronouns. Thank you very much to my panel, Cresta Wetton and Bruce Devlin, and to all of my brilliant guests this evening. And if you want to join us live in the studio and be part of this wonderful audience when we fix the air conditioning, please go to www.sroaudiences.com. Stay tuned for the brilliant Mark Dolan tonight. That's next. And don't forget, Headliners every night at 11 p.m, the late night pay-per-view show where comedians talk you through the next day's news stories. Thank you for watching Free Speech Nation. Good night.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, welcome to your GB News weather update brought to you by the Met Office. It's going to be staying rather cloudy this evening, but for Bank Holiday Monday, it's a case of sunny spells and showers, but hopefully a little bit more settled as we go into next week. But we have got low pressure firmly in charge, especially across the southern parts of England. This has brought quite a lot of cloud and rain. That cloud and rain is going to continue to push its way northwards, affecting southern parts of Wales, but generally fizzling out across Northern Ireland and Scotland, holding on to a lot of cloud here. Still some outbreaks of showers, heaviest in the north and east, but a lot of cloud around, so temperatures aren't really dipping tonight, but we could see some mist and fog patches develop where we see the clearest skies. As we go through Bank Holiday Monday, then we've got a few watch points, especially across the southeast England. As we start the day, we've got outbreaks of rain that could turn quite heavy at times. Elsewhere, sunny spells, but also some showers breaking out. Again, some of these could be on the heavy side, turning dry across Northern Ireland, but rather cloudy. Temperatures around average, but in the sunshine, feeling warm with highs of 17 or 18. As we go through Tuesday, a drier theme. Many places starting off with some sunny spells, but also quite a lot of low cloud, especially across the northeast coast of England. And then through the day, some showers are going to be bubbling up, but high pressure is going to be dominating into next week. That will keep things a bit more settled, with temperatures also on the rise.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The next Great British Giveaway winner could be you, with a massive £20,000 in tax-free cash to be won. Imagine how you'd react getting that winning call from us.
Hi, my name's Phil Cox, and I won the Great British Giveaway. I'd say, why not? What is it? The price of a text and £2 to enter. And if I can win it, anybody can win it. And they're going to get even more money this time round, so why wouldn't you go in the draw?
For another chance to win £20,000 in tax-free cash, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB05, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 31st of May. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio, and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
They catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Camilla Tominey. This is GB News, Britain's election channel.
It's 9 o'clock on television, on radio and online in the United Kingdom and across the world. This is Mark Dolan Tonight. A very busy show coming up, let me tell you. So many big issues to get through. In the big story, is time running out for the Conservatives? We'll be joined by Philip Davies MP. Is Rishi Sunak going to remain Prime Minister? We'll debate all of that. Also, in the big story, Suella Braverman says that she regrets supporting Rishi Sunak as leader. And with Dame Andrea Jenkins saying bring back Boris, should the Tories have one more roll of the dice and put someone new in charge? Also tonight, is Britain an institutionally racist country? No, says my Mark Meets guest, Tony Sewell, a prominent man of colour in the House of Lords whose report on the issue saw him attacked, demonised and stripped of an honorary degree. Cancelled for having the wrong opinions, Lord Tony Sewell joins me live shortly. And looking forward to this in my take at 10, Prince Andrew needs to get his house in order as the £30 million royal lodge that he inhabits is falling apart. Should King Charles evict his own brother? My verdict at 10. Two hours of big opinion, big debate and big entertainment. And it is the bank holiday weekend. So shall we have some fun? I think we'll have some fun. I've got a great panel tonight. Why don't you grab a cold beer from the fridge, uncork a bottle of wine. I don't think it's too late. It's 9 o'clock. That sounds good to me. Wine o'clock. Or fire up the kettle, tear open the custard creams and let's get to work. That's right, it is a Mark Dolan Tonight bank holiday special. 2 hours of entertainment, lols and a bit of debate along the way. First up, the headlines and a good friend of mine, Sam Francis.
Mark, thank you very much and good evening from the GB newsroom. It's just coming up to 3 minutes past 9. The top story tonight. The Liberal Democrats claim that Rishi Sunak is living on cloud cuckoo land after a disappointing set of local election results for the Conservatives. The biggest upset saw Labour's Richard Parker win the West Midlands, defeating Andy Street by just 1,500 votes. The Conservatives also lost all of the mayoral elections except one. Ben Houchen remains in his post in Teesside. But Labour's National Campaign Coordinator, Pat McFadden, says his party shouldn't be too complacent.
But two things have guided our position all along. One is the one that you just mentioned, which is Israel's right to defend itself after the appalling attacks on October the 7th. That will remain. We will stick up for that. But we also want to see a better future for the Palestinian people. And if we were to be elected at the coming election, that would be a big foreign policy priority for us.
Pat McFadden speaking to us earlier this morning. Well, in other news, a candlelit vigil has been held for a teenager who was stabbed in north-east London earlier this week.